The bobby pin would not come loose from my veil. I had twisted it too hard during the reception, smiling through photographs while my new husband kept checking his phone. And now the tiny silver thing had trapped a strand of hair near the back of my neck like it knew something I did not. I sat on the edge of the honeymoon suite bed in a wedding dress that suddenly felt borrowed, listening to Julian's voice fade down the hallway as he took another family call. He claimed could not wait until morning. The room was beautiful in the way. Expensive rooms are beautiful when they are designed for other people's memories. White roses on the table, champagne sweating in a silver bucket, 2 crystal glasses untouched beside a folder of estate documents I did not remember seeing before. My ring caught the lamplight when I reached for another pin, and for one strange second I did not recognize my own hand. Someone knocked, not Julian's sharp double tap, not housekeeping. 3 soft knocks spaced apart, almost careful. I stood too quickly, and the skirt of my dress dragged against the carpet with a whisper that sounded too loud in the silence. When I opened the door, Elias Morty stood in the private hallway in a black tuxedo, one hand at his side, the other holding an envelope sealed with dark red wax. He did not say congratulations. He looked at the veil caught in my hair, then at my face, and something tightened in his jaw before he buried it. "Do not sign anything tonight," he said. The sentence was so wrong, so intimate, so late that I almost laughed. 11 years of silence, and this was what he brought me on my wedding night. Not an apology, not an explanation, a warning. I kept one hand on the door because if I let go, I was afraid I would either slam it or reach for him, and both choices felt like losing. "You should not be here, I know." His voice was low, controlled, the way it always was when he was holding back more than he allowed the room to see. The envelope in his hand was old cream paper, my father's initials pressed into the wax. My breath changed before I could stop it. Elias noticed, of course he noticed. He had always noticed the smallest things and then done nothing with them. "Where did you get that?" I asked. "From a man who waited too long to trust the right person." "That sounds like a family trait." His eyes dropped for half a second. "Not enough for surrender, enough for memory." Behind me, the champagne bucket released a soft crack of melting ice. Down the hall, an elevator chimed. Elias stepped back from the threshold instead of closer, as if the line between the hallway and my room mattered to him. That almost made me angrier. "Grace," he said. I hated how my name sounded in his mouth, like something he had kept safe while letting me break over it. "Julian is going to ask you to sign papers before dawn." I glanced at the folder on the table. My stomach went cold. "My husband said they were estate documents." "They are. Then why are you here?" Elias looked past me at the untouched glasses, the roses, the bed I could not bring myself to sit on again. When his eyes came back to mine, the mask slipped just enough to show the damage underneath. "Because I loved you first," he said. The words I had wanted at 17, at 21, at every family dinner where he stood across rooms pretending not to watch me, had finally arrived dressed as a threat. I reached up, pulled the stuck pin from my veil and let it fall into my palm. "No," I whispered. His face did not move. Mine did. I felt it. The tiny collapse around the mouth, the heat behind the eyes, the humiliation of still being reachable after all this time. I took the wedding ring off slowly and set it on the narrow hallway table between us. "Then why?" I asked. "Did you let me marry him?" The ring stayed on the hallway table between us, brighter than either of us deserved. Elias looked at it once, then away, as if touching it with his eyes was already too much. I wanted him to answer quickly. I wanted him to say something cruel enough to kill whatever part of me had waited for him through college graduations, funerals, holiday dinners, and every room where he stood close enough to ruin me, but far enough to deny it. Instead, he held the envelope out with both hands. "Your father asked me to stay away." The words did not land like an explanation. They landed like another door locked from the other side. I stared at the red wax seal, at the initials pressed there, at the tiny crack through the W where time had split it. "My father has been dead for 6 years. He wrote this before surgery. He gave it to me with instructions." "Instructions?" My voice came out flat. "Of course he did. Everyone in my life seems very comfortable giving instructions about me." Elias's hand lowered an inch, not much, enough to show it had hit. The elevator chimed again at the end of the hall, and he turned his head, listening past the sound, past the carpeted silence, past whatever men like him trained themselves to hear. "We do not have long. You had 11 years. I took the envelope because leaving it in his hand felt like letting him keep one more piece of my life. The paper was thick and cold. My father's initials pressed into the wax looked exactly like the signet ring he used to wear when he still believed the Whitmore name meant honor instead of debt. Elias did not step inside. That irritated me more than if he had. He had crossed every emotional line a man could cross, but he would not cross the carpet without permission. "Say it," I told him. "All of it." His mouth tightened. "When you were 17, your father came to me after the Moretti Library benefit. He knew you were there because of me." Heat rose under my skin, not romantic heat, exposure. I remembered that library too clearly. The high windows, the smell of old paper and polished wood. Elias at 24, standing near the west shelves in a charcoal suit, pretending to read donor reports while I pretended to care about Italian poetry. He told me if I cared for you, I would let you think I did not. I laughed once, quiet and ugly. "That sounds convenient." Yes, the answer stopped me. Elias did not defend himself. He did not polish it. It was convenient. It let me call cowardice discipline. A door opened somewhere down the hall. Julian's voice carried faintly, warm and practiced, thanking someone for discretion. Elias looked toward the sound and the air changed around him, not panic, calculation. "Grace, the papers in that room are not routine. Once you sign, Julian gains temporary control of the Whitmore Trust under the marital stabilization clause. There is no such clause. There is if your family amended it last month." My grip tightened around the envelope. My family would have told me. Elias's expression did not change, and that was answer enough. Behind me, the folder on the table seemed to grow heavier in the room. I thought of my Aunt Margaret smoothing my veil before the ceremony, her fingers lingering at my shoulders as she said, "We all have to do our part now." I had thought she meant the wedding. Maybe she had meant the sale. Julian appeared at the end of the corridor with his jacket unbuttoned and his smile already in place. He slowed when he saw Elias, not surprised, annoyed. That was worse. "Moretti," Julian said, easy as a handshake. "You are a little late for the reception." Elias slipped his hands into his pockets. "And you are early for the paperwork." Julian's smile did not move, but his attention cut to the envelope in my hand, then the ring on the table. He saw everything in one glance and forgave none of it. When he reached us, he kissed my forehead before I could decide whether to step back. The gesture was gentle enough for a photograph, firm enough to mark territory. "Grace," he said softly, "you should be resting." I looked at his hand as it settled against the doorframe, blocking half the entrance to the suite. "Why is there a document folder on our table? Estate formalities. Before dawn, the board is anxious. After today, stability matters." Elias said nothing. He did not rescue me from the sentence. He let me hear it. Julian turned to him with polite steel under his voice. "My wife does not need old ghosts confusing her tonight. My wife." The words were not loud. They did not have to be. I picked up my ring from the table and held it in my closed fist instead of putting it back on. Julian noticed. Elias noticed. For the first time that night, so did I. Julian picked up the wedding ring from my closed fist as if I had offered it to him. He did not pull, he did not need to. His fingers simply covered mine, warm and steady, and the pressure made my hand open before my pride could stop it. "There," he said, sliding the ring back onto my finger with a smile meant for witnesses who were not present. "That looks more like us." Elias's jaw shifted once. He was standing close enough to stop him, powerful enough to make the hallway rearrange itself around his anger. And he did nothing. That restraint should have comforted me. Instead, it made the air feel thinner. "I need to read the papers," I said. Julian kept his thumb over the ring a second longer than necessary. "Of course. Tomorrow after you sleep." Now, his smile softened. That was how he corrected people, I realized. Not with force. With tenderness sharpened to a point. "Grace, you have been awake since 5 in the morning. You cried during the father-daughter dance with an empty chair. You barely ate. If you sign anything tonight, I want you clear, not emotional." The word slid under my skin, emotional. A small, clean cage. I looked at Elias, expecting him to step in. Maybe because some old part of me still wanted him to choose loudly enough to erase every year he had chosen silence. He only looked at the folder inside the suite. "Ask him for the original trust language," he said. Julian turned his head slowly. "Excuse me? Not the summary, not the board memorandum. The original clause. This is a family matter. Then your wife should know the family she just married." Julian's hand fell from mine. The place where he had touched my skin felt colder than before. I walked past both of them into the suite, leaving the door open, because closing it would have felt like choosing a side, and I was tired of sides being built around me. The folder waited on the round table between the roses and the untouched champagne. I opened it. The top page looked harmless enough. Letterhead. My married name printed for the first time in a font I had not chosen. Grace Whitmore Vale. I stared at it too long. Elias stayed in the hallway. Julian came inside. The difference mattered. "This is standard," Julian said behind me. "Temporary authorization during estate restructuring." Why was I not told before the ceremony? Because your aunt did not want to burden you. My aunt never forgets to burden me. A flicker crossed his face. Irritation quickly buried. Good. So he could bleed expression after all. I turned a page, numbers, dates. Signatures already prepared below blank lines. My father's trust name appeared twice, then again beside a phrase that made me stop. "Spousal emergency proxy." My finger rested under the words. Julian reached around me and tapped the next paragraph. "That only applies if the board cannot reach consensus." His sleeve brushed my bare arm. I stepped away and he noticed. Elias did too from the threshold, but he still did not cross it. "May I?" Elias asked, not to Julian, to me. The question was so small it almost disappeared under the room's expensive quiet. I nodded. Only then did he enter. He took the folder without touching my hand and laid 3 pages side by side on the table. His cuff brushed the roses, shaking one petal loose. "This version references a July amendment," he said. "Your father died in March." I looked down. July. My stomach tightened. "That is impossible." Julian sighed, patient now in a way that made me want to break something delicate. "Estate law is complicated." Elias looked up. "Fours is not." The word did not explode, it settled. Heavy. Julian's smile finally left his face. For a second, the beautiful husband from the altar was gone, and someone colder stood in his place. Then he walked to the champagne bucket, lifted the unopened bottle, and read the label as if we were discussing a seating mistake. "Be careful, Moretti. You are a guest in my marriage." Elias did not move. "And you are standing on a dead man's signature." My hand found the back of a chair, not for balance, to keep from reaching for the envelope. Julian saw that too. He always saw ownership first. "Grace," he said softer, "give me whatever he brought you." I looked at the red wax seal in my hand. My father's initials, my father's silence. Elias's silence, all of it sealed and waiting. "No," I said. Julian's eyes lifted to mine. The room went very still around the word. "Then open it," he said. "Let us see which dead man ruins our wedding night." Elias stepped toward him. I raised one hand, and he stopped. That was the first time either man obeyed me. I opened the envelope in the bathroom, because it was the only room in the suite with a lock. Julian stood on the other side of the door, saying my name in that careful voice men use when they want obedience to sound like concern. Elias said nothing. His silence was different now, not absence. Permission. I sat on the closed marble toilet lid with my wedding dress gathered around me like spilled milk and slid my thumbnail under the cracked wax seal. My father's initials split in half. For a second, I almost apologized to him. Then I remembered he had left me a locked door instead of a conversation. Inside was a letter, one photograph, and a small brass key taped to a card. The key was old, flat, worn smooth at the teeth. Not a hotel key, not a house key, a safe deposit key. My hands went cold around it. The photograph showed me at 17 outside the Moretti Library, wearing a blue cardigan I had forgotten until that exact moment. I was looking down at a book. Behind the glass doors, half hidden by the reflection of trees, Elias stood watching me with his hand against the frame. Young, unsure, unfairly beautiful, not indifferent, never indifferent. The letter shook slightly as I unfolded it. My father's handwriting leaned hard to the right, impatient even from the grave. Grace, if you are reading this on your wedding night, then someone has waited until vows made you easier to control. I stopped. Outside the door, Julian's voice softened. Grace, sweetheart, unlock the door. Sweetheart sounded wrong through wood. I kept reading. The Whitmore Trust cannot legally transfer through marriage unless you sign willingly after the ceremony. They will call it stabilization. They will call it family duty. Read every page. Ask for the original July amendment. If it exists, it is not mine. My breath caught the word July blurred, then sharpened. Elias had seen it. He had known where to look because my father had told him. I pressed the letter flat against my knee. The boy who stayed away did not stop loving you. He was paying my debt. I hated that sentence. I loved it so much I wanted to tear it in half. Soft scrape came from the bedroom. Paper moving, the document folder. Julian was not waiting anymore. I stood, holding my dress up with one hand, and opened the bathroom door. Julian had the folder in his hands. He looked almost bored, except for the tightness around his mouth. Elias stood near the entryway, exactly where I had left him, one hand resting against the wall, not blocking anyone, not saving me without permission. His eyes went to the key in my hand. He knew what it was. Julian did too. That was his mistake. His gaze dropped too fast, too hungry, before he remembered to look like a husband. That old thing, he said. Your father kept sentimental junk everywhere. I walked toward the table and placed the letter beside the trust papers. My wedding dress whispered over the carpet. Then you will not mind me using it tomorrow. Julian smiled. Banks are closed tomorrow. It is Sunday. I did not say bank. The room tightened. Elias's expression did not change, but his fingers curled once against the wall. Julian closed the folder slowly. Grace, grief makes objects feel more important than they are. There it was again. The soft cage, grief, emotion. Tired bride. I picked up the page with the July amendment and held it beside my father's letter. The signatures were close, too close, but my father always crossed the T in Whitmore with a long, angry slash. On the amendment, the line was short and polite. My father had never been polite on paper in his life. I looked at Elias, not for rescue, for confirmation that I was seeing what I thought I was seeing. He gave one small nod. Julian saw it and lost half a second of control. You two have had quite a little reunion, he said. 11 years makes people sentimental. You counted? I asked. He blinked just once, but it was enough. I had never told him how long, not exactly, not out loud. The only people who knew were me, Elias, and the people who had been watching us long before tonight. Julian set the folder down with careful hands. Everyone knew, Grace. I looked at my ring, bright on my finger again, and twisted it once. Not off, not yet. Good, I said. Then everyone can watch me read the rest. Julian carried the papers to the sitting room like a man presenting a dessert menu. He had regained his smile by then, which should have warned me more than his anger. Men who smile after being caught are not calm. They are counting exits. If you insist on reading, he said, let us read properly. He opened the double doors to the adjoining parlor, where a small group of family had gathered without anyone telling me. My Aunt Margaret sat near the fireplace in her pale blue reception dress, hands folded so tightly her knuckles had gone white. 2 Whitmore board members stood by the bar with untouched drinks. Julian's father occupied the leather chair by the window, looking less surprised than bored. The room smelled like cigar smoke someone had tried to hide with lilies. I stopped at the threshold. Elias stopped beside me, just far enough away that no one could accuse him of leading me. Close enough that I could feel the shape of his stillness. Julian turned back. See? Nothing secret, just family. My aunt would not look at me. That hurt more than I wanted it to. She had buttoned the back of my dress that afternoon with trembling fingers and told me my father would have been proud. Now she stared at the floor like the carpet had offered better terms. I walked in because staying at the doorway would have made me look afraid, and I was tired of helping people write my weakness for me. Julian laid the folder on the coffee table. Grace has concerns, he announced gently. The board members exchanged the kind of glance that made women disappear in rooms built by men. Not unkind, worse, prepared. She is exhausted, Margaret said. Her voice cracked on the last word. It has been a long day. I looked at her. Then why are all of you awake? No one answered quickly enough. Elias moved to the side wall near a cabinet of old decanters, hands loose at his sides. He did not speak. He did not loom. He simply became impossible to ignore. Julian noticed and adjusted his cuff. "We all want what is best for you." That sentence has done a lot of damage tonight. A tiny sound came from Elias, almost a breath, not quite a laugh. I glanced at him before I could stop myself, and for the first time since he arrived, his expression softened where only I could see it. It was gone immediately, but it had been there. Julian opened the folder to the summary page and slid it toward me. "Read the original. This is clearer, the original." My voice stayed level, which seemed to irritate him more than shouting would have. He reached for the bottom section of the folder, but his hand covered one tab too fast. Elias saw it, so did I. He had taught me by refusing to interrupt. Watch the hand that protects the paper. I leaned forward and touched the hidden tab with 2 fingers. That one. Julian's hand remained in place. "That section is procedural." I did not pull. I did not fight him for it. I looked at Margaret instead. "Did you know about the July amendment?" Her lips parted. Nothing came out. That was answer enough, but not the whole answer. Elias stepped away from the wall and took one slow pace closer. Julian's eyes cut to him. "This is not your family." Elias stopped. The old Elias would have answered with power. The man in front of me looked at Julian, then at me, and stayed quiet. He left the blade in my hand. I slid my wedding ring off and placed it on top of Julian's fingers where they pinned the folder shut. The gold made a soft sound against his skin. "Move your hand," I said. The room went still. Julian looked down at the ring as if it had betrayed him. Slowly, he lifted his hand. Beneath it was the original amendment with my father's impossible July signature and a second page I had not seen. Spousal emergency proxy became irrevocable upon consummation or public marital confirmation, whichever occurred first. The words blurred, then cleared. The untouched champagne, the witnesses, the photographs. The morning announcement he had planned. None of it had been romance. It had been paperwork wearing a wedding dress. Elias's face changed behind me, a flash of contained fury, but he did not step forward until I reached back without looking. I did not take his hand. I touched 2 fingers to his sleeve, just enough. Stay he did. And in that small obedience, something between us shifted from old heartbreak into something more dangerous and useful. Trust. The second page did not stay private for more than 10 seconds. Julian's father stood from the leather chair and asked to see it, not because he was shocked, but because he wanted control of the paper before the room understood what it meant. I lifted it out of his reach. The movement was small, almost rude. His face tightened anyway. "Grace," he said, using the voice of a man who had practiced authority on daughters who were not his. "You are embarrassing yourself." "No," I said. "I am reading." My aunt made a sound then, not quite a sob, not quite my name. I looked at her and saw the truth sitting in her lap before she confessed to any of it. Her hands were still folded, but now one thumb rubbed the empty space where her wedding ring used to sit. My father's sister had sold pieces of herself for this family, long before she offered them me. Julian walked to the bar and poured water he did not drink. "The clause is standard protection for a distressed estate. It says my husband can control the trust if I publicly confirm the marriage." "You did that at the altar. And again tomorrow," I said, looking at the folder. "At the breakfast announcement." One of the board members lowered his glass. Margaret closed her eyes. Elias remained behind me, still as a locked door. I could feel him holding himself back, and for the first time I understood the cost of that restraint. He could have ended the room with one phone call. He could have made Julian afraid. Instead, he let me make him answer. Julian set the untouched water down. "You are tired. You are twisting language because Moretti wants you confused. Then explain it clearly." His smile returned, thinner now. "Fine. The estate is unstable. Your aunt borrowed against assets she did not fully control. Creditors are circling. My family has the resources to protect the Whitmore name. In exchange for me." The words did not break. I thought they would. They did not. Silence spread through the parlor, touching every polished surface. Margaret finally looked up. Her eyes were wet, but she did not reach for me. That was its own confession. "I thought I could fix it after," she whispered. "After what?" I asked. She looked at the ring on the table. "After you were safe." Another soft word with a locked room behind it. Julian's father cleared his throat. This conversation has gone far enough. The announcement is already scheduled. The press expects unity. If Grace refuses now, every lender we have calmed will hear about it before noon. There it was, the real threat. Not shouting, not force, consequence dressed as concern. A family name dragged through financial mud. Headlines. Bored panic. My father's trust collapsing because his daughter made a scene in her wedding dress. Elias shifted half a step, then stopped when my fingers brushed his sleeve again. The fabric was warm under my touch. I did not look back at him. If I did, I might lean. I needed to stand. "Where is the safe deposit box?" I asked. Margaret's face drained. Julian turned too quickly. The board members looked at one another. My question had found a room none of them wanted opened. I took the brass key from the small pocket hidden in my dress and placed it on top of the amendment. "My father left this with the letter." Julian stared at the key. "That box is irrelevant." Elias spoke then, very softly. "No, it is not." Every eye moved to him. He did not look at Julian. He looked at me, and his voice changed, stripped of performance, stripped of the old distance. "Your father kept the original trust instrument there, and the debt records." Margaret covered her mouth. Julian's father whispered something I did not catch. Julian looked at Elias with the first honest expression I had seen from him all night. Fear, not of violence. Of paperwork, of proof, of a dead man who had been more careful than all of them. I picked up the amendment, folded it once, and slid it under my palm. "Then nobody signs anything," I said, "until that box is opened." Julian stepped toward me. Elias moved at the same time, not in front of me, but beside me. Shoulder aligned with mine, no hand on my waist. No claim, just presence. Julian stopped because the room had seen the difference. For the first time that night, my choice had a witness who was not trying to own it. The brass key left a small dent in the top page of Julian's amendment. I kept my palm over it while the room decided whether I was still a bride or already a problem. Nobody moved toward the door. Nobody reached for a phone. That was how I knew they were frightened. Not of me exactly. Of the version of my father they had failed to bury. Julian looked at the key, then at his father, and something silent passed between them too quickly to be honest. His father gave the smallest shake of his head. Julian ignored it. "Fine," he said almost lightly. "Open the box. Let us end this little performance with whatever sentimental relic your father left behind." He was too confident. That should have scared me. Instead, it steadied me. Men like Julian only smiled that way when they believed they had already removed the dangerous part. Margaret stood from the couch. Her knees nearly folded, but she caught the armrest and straightened with the kind of dignity that looked painful to wear. "Grace," she said, "there are things in that box you may not want in a room full of people. Then you should have told me before you put me in one." She looked down. A tear slipped off her chin and landed on her blue dress. I did not go to her, not yet. Elias reached into his jacket and placed a small black drive beside the key. He did it carefully, with 2 fingers, as if anything more dramatic might make it about him. "Your father gave me this the same week he gave me the envelope." Julian laughed under his breath. "Of course he did. The dead man trusted a Moretti more than his own family." How touching. Elias did not react. That bothered Julian more than anger would have. "I was not supposed to open it unless Grace asked me to," Elias said. The words found me before I was ready. Asked me, there it was again. The thing he had failed to understand for 11 years and was trying, clumsily, to learn in one night. I looked at the drive, then at his hand withdrawing from the table. His knuckles were tight, but he did not close them into a fist. The board member closest to the bar cleared his throat. "We cannot access a bank box tonight." "The Whitmore box is not at a bank," Elias said. Julian's smile vanished and returned wrong. "Too fast. You would not know that." Elias looked at me. "Your father kept it in the old conservatory safe at the Whitmore estate, behind the north wall under the greenhouse ledger." Margaret sat down hard. The room heard it. Even Julian heard it. I remembered the greenhouse ledger, a leather book my father used to keep near the orchids, full of watering schedules and small cash expenses in his jagged handwriting. I had thought it was useless after he died. I had boxed it with garden tools. Julian had been at the estate last month, helping Margaret catalog assets. He had walked through that greenhouse with muddy shoes and a clipboard, smiling at me as if kindness were a language he had invented. You did not find it, I said. Julian's eyes shifted to me. Not enough for guilt, enough for direction. Find what? I looked at the amendment, the key, the black drive, then at the wedding ring lying cold near his hand. The pieces did not fit yet, but the edges had started speaking to each other. You found the safe, I said. But not the ledger. His father snapped Julian, just one word, too late. The board members turned toward him. Margaret closed her eyes again, and this time I understood. The ledger was not sentimental, it was the map. Julian leaned over the table, both palms flat now, the polished groom finally showing the pressure underneath. Grace, be very careful. If you drag this into court, the trust freezes. Creditors move in, staff lose jobs. Your aunt loses the house. That is on you. Elias took half a step beside me, then stopped himself before his shoulder crossed mine. The restraint was so visible it became a statement. I picked up the ring and slid it into my palm, not onto my finger. You keep telling me what happens if I tell the truth, I said. That makes me wonder what happens if I do not. Julian's mouth opened. No answer came. In the quiet, the elevator in the hall chimed, and every person in the room looked toward the sound as if the future had arrived early. The elevator opened to a man carrying a cardboard archive box against his chest like it might fall apart if he breathed wrong. He was older than I remembered, shoulders thinner, hair more gray than brown. But I knew him from my father's office photographs. Mr. Calder, the Whitmore family accountant, stepped into the parlor with rain on his overcoat and fear written plainly across his face. No one welcomed him. That was how I knew he had not come for Julian. Elias did not look surprised. He only moved aside, giving the man a clear path to me, Mr. Calder stopped at the coffee table and set the box down beside the brass key and the black drive. Your father instructed me to deliver this if that key ever surfaced on a wedding night, he said. His voice shook on wedding night. Julian's father stood too quickly. This is improper, Mr. Calder did not look at him. He looked at me. So was the July amendment. The room went quiet in a way that felt physical, like all the air had been pressed flat. I opened the box. Inside was the greenhouse ledger, its brown leather cover cracked at the corners, with my father's handwriting across the first page. Beneath it sat a thin folder, a sealed affidavit, and a photograph of Julian at the Whitmore Conservatory last month, kneeling near the north wall, safe with my aunt's estate keys in his hand. Margaret made a broken sound and covered her mouth. Julian stared at the photograph, then at the ledger, then at me. His expression did not collapse. It rearranged itself into a fence. That proves nothing. I lifted the ledger. A folded page slid out, marked with my father's hard black ink. Elias stayed beside me, silent, not reading over my shoulder. Letting me reach it, first I opened the page. It was not a love letter. It was not a confession. It was a list, dates, payments, names. Loans made against Whitmore assets by Margaret after my father's death, guaranteed by Julian's family, then quietly increased until the estate could not breathe. At the bottom, in my father's writing from years earlier, was a sentence underlined twice. If they try to solve debt with marriage, they have already chosen the buyer. I looked at my aunt. Her face had gone gray. I thought I was saving the house, she whispered. I know, I said, and somehow that hurt worse than anger, Mr. Calder inserted the black drive into the laptop on the bar. A scanned document appeared on the wall-mounted screen above the fireplace. The original Whitmore Trust instrument.